It's episode 3 of the podcast. First episode with a guest.
This is my father, Ricardo Martinez. We call him Papi. All my friends, we all call him Papi. I grew up Hispanic, but I never really learned how to speak Spanish growing up. But it was one of the things I picked up, calling my dad Papi. So yeah, this is him. Got so many cool stories to go through, but I want to start off asking about your upbringing.
I grew up in South America. Grew up in Chile, part of my life, and I grew up. I'm one of 8 kids, but if you go back, I was one of 3. My father, in 1963, he passed away. I was 6 months old, and he passed away. In Chile, it was an operation, and it was a simple operation. It was an appendix, and he went to get it checked, and they told him that something was wrong with it. They needed to get operated, so he set up time to operate it. And then he went in and got it done. And before he knew it, when he went back home to heal, he wasn't feeling well, and he was bleeding inside. So he told my mom. He told him that he wasn't feeling well. He said, "You have to watch out because your family, my family is gonna. Something happens to me, my family's gonna come after you, and they're gonna take everything away and all this crazy stuff." So I was like, "Wow." They told me this later on. My mom explained to me all these things that happened. But so he ended up going back to the hospital, and he died at the hospital. So then my mom was alone with us, but they wanted her to move into a condo away from the house. We had pretty much a nice setup. My father was a builder at the time, and he was setting up a good life for us. And then after that, my mother tried to no, I don't want to do this. That he told me I could stay in the house, but they came in and started taking all his things. My uncles.
Yeah.
They started to take all his things, private things, and we were just little kids.
Yeah.
My brother was 1 year older than me, or 3 years older than me, and my other brother was 4 years older than me. So there's 3 of us.
So what's like the time period of all this stuff?
This is 1963.
Okay.
1963.
And what part of Chile are you
This is in Concepcion.
Okay.
And then right after that, so she tried to fight apparently and couldn't. And then her godfather was Marcelo Cresta, which was because her father was not alive. So my grandma was alive. My grandmother told her, "Hey, go see so and so. Go see your godfather." My grandfather was a judge at the time,
Okay.
and apparently went to him, and he said, "Move in, come, bring the kids over, and we're gonna fix this. We'll talk to them. Everything will be okay, And it didn't turn out to be that way. They ended up fighting. They ended up going to court, and my mother ended up apparently winning her rights, to be able to stay in the home and so forth. And while she was in the house of my godfather, the father the father I grew up with, Humberto, he fell in love with her.
Oh, okay.
So he used to take us out with them and all that. He was going to law school at the time, and then apparently she won the case. But it was really difficult because we couldn't see my grandmother, we couldn't see my aunt, we couldn't see my cousins. I couldn't see anybody because the Spanish side of the family. This is okay. My side of the family is the Spanish side.
Yeah.
From Spain, from Logroño, Spain.
Oh, okay.
And from my mother's side is Basque, and then from my father's side, my father's side was from Logroño, Spain, and my mother was Basque, and Humberto Cresta is half Italian, half Scottish.
Your godfather?
My stepfather.
Stepfather, yeah.
That I grew up with. So then they fell in love, and they had along the way they had I had 2 more brothers.
Okay.
Marcelo and Octavio and Marcelo, and then Maria, Claudia, and Sylvia.
Okay.
So three sisters and 2 brothers.
So a big family at this time.
Oh yeah, but then we turned into 8 of us, and by then I was already. Let me see. My brother was. This is 1970. 1969, 1970, and my father decides to take us to Europe. in Chile, communism came on.
Yeah.
And it was really, really harsh. They were killing people all over the place.
Yeah.
We didn't have nothing to. It was really basically all the stores were closed. The bakery used to open up, and I had to go and sit on the line. This is what happened. My father decided to go to business. They had to leave because he was on the right party, and who won was the left party, who's been trying to win for like 20 years.
Yeah.
But eventually they got it, Allende, and they got it. And then we stayed alone with my mom, and he couldn't get back in the country. And so then we had to go find food and stuff, whatever we can get to get in the house. He found some people to come over and give us something, but we had to literally live on like potatoes and just a few things.
Yeah, what was like your upbringing like in a situation like that?
But that was really difficult because look, you go down the street, you walk down the street. We lived in a city, Santiago. He moved us to Santiago, a really nice area in Santiago. But when we were walking down the street, they were blank shooters. So people would die right next to you. You're walking, somebody would be going away, and we had to run down and get down on the cars and like just hide and do. Look, the police will come in, or the people will come in, take you out of the house and shoot you. Like if you were in the wrong person, they will shoot you and kill you. So it was a very difficult time, and I was really young.
How old were you like?
At the time, I was about 7.
Gosh.
But so when we went, okay, so he took us out. He took us to Europe, and when he took us out, he says, "Okay, no, we all got to leave. You just got to leave because they're going to start killing people."
Yeah.
And it was like that. It was pretty bad. So they took us to Europe, and we lasted in Europe about maybe 2 years. We took us all over the place, Spain, France, all over the place. And by the time we got back to Chile, things were not that great. They're still bad, but they were like changing, But there's people who were still coming. So he set us up in the house. When he was away, he says, "Look, if I go out, you guys got to sit here. And if anybody comes to the house, you shoot." And he set up a machine gun for my brother, and he set me with a gun in one window.
Holy shit.
The whole house was kind of blocked up. It was like a small French chateau.
How old are you at this time when he's like, "Get ready, you have to shoot somebody if someone comes up to the house"?
10, 11?
11 years old.
Yeah.
So you're like 11 years old, already like survival instincts, like a grown man in the military almost.
I think it was around that time. I can recall. You guys are picking my brain a little bit.
Yeah, no, of course.
That's our job.
Yeah, but I have to really figure it out and go back. If I go back, then I'll start thinking about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was a really difficult time because, neighbors, the same thing happened to, and we used to get together with the neighbors. I had to go out. There was you call it toque de queda, which is a curfew. So the curfew comes on, you cannot be out.
Yeah.
Because the police will get you and take you, So because they wanted to get everybody. So they knew that whoever was going to be out was on the other side.
Yeah.
So, but you're a kid. So you want to go see your friends on the street.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of crazy stuff that go on too when you're a young kid and you want to get out. And but anyway, so when that happened, that was part of our upbringing, and we went to pretty decent schools, but because of all these political situations on the way, it was very difficult to stay in school.
How do you even get an education in that environment?
It was very difficult. I think about growing up, like, look, when I grew up with my grandfather's side, you remember, all of a sudden we were at Godfather's house, and then all of a sudden we're with the family. Even they knew my family because my dad, I seen pictures with my dad and my mom. Well, they used to go there, and they used to be in these big parties because my grandfather used to throw these really, really elaborate parties, and everybody get together, And he had like this huge table, and there was people all over it all the time. And he had this beautiful backyard. So you come in, and it's all vines of grapes, And he used to pick me up. Here he goes. And he used to call me the professor. The professor. He'd be like, he'd pick me up and go. He was a big guy. He was like a big Italian guy. And she was just she was very pretty, blue eyes, blonde lady. And he was like, he looked like a, if you look at a picture of him, he looks like a mafia guy, so like a big guy,
a big Italian
rough
guy,
dude, a big rough Italian guy, and but he was a sweetheart. He was super nice. They were really nice to us, and growing up with them was really exciting. I didn't know anything else, I didn't know the other side of the family. I didn't get to see them. I used to see them like when we go on vacation. I would see my cousins. I said, "Those are our cousins. Why don't we go play with them?" I said, "No, we're not allowed to go play with them." And I was like, "Why?" I thought it was so weird because the family decided to write us off after she took him to court.
Oh,
Spanish,
okay, yeah.
Spanish. What happened is back then you were not allowed to divorce, and you have to be a widow. And my mother was not going to deal with that, to be a widow. So she was like, she was 21 years old.
Mhm.
She married my dad when she was 17. So she was 21 years old with 3 kids, or whatever it was, maybe 22 or something. But when that happened, so I remember it so vivid. when I used to go there, every Sunday they used to have this huge party. It was like 70 plus people, and we used to sit down and eat, and they used to start. And I used to go to my grandfather's house, and I didn't know any other grandfather. That was my grandfather. You know what I mean? My step grandfather and grandmother. We used to go there, and he used to say, "Let me show you what they're doing." So they had all the ladies working in the kitchen. They had a lot of help. There's the help, and they used to make this sauce, this incredible sauce, just like you see in the movies. They would start making it in the morning.
It's like Godfather.
They used to make it in the morning. They start these huge pots, and they start making it in the morning, and they start making the pastas. So by the time the night came, there was wine and it was a total feast, and all the kids were there. It's like 70 plus kids. So growing up with them was really nice. It was a family-oriented, and they had time. When they sit on the table, people talked. People communicated with each other, and then everybody talked about everything. Sometimes when they were a little wasted, there were some arguments and things like that going on. But he will keep control of it. He'd be like, okay, that's it. That's enough. But it was exciting. It was exciting to go there. You'd be excited to go there on a Sunday. You'd be like, oh, we're going to Grandpa's house.
Is this where you kind of learned how to cook too? Because you're pretty good cook, Papi.
Yeah, I learned little by little how to cook like that, because I used to watch and I'd be like, okay, I'm going to try that. So as I grew up, I used to play with it. And then my father, because he grew up with his father, he cooked too. He cooked everything, French food, Mediterranean food, you can name it, he cooked it. So I learned from him too. My mother did very little cooking, believe it or not,
Yeah.
Because my father loved to cook, so he loved food. Food was one of the things they loved. So I remember when we left to Europe, my grandfather passed away. My grandfather passed away, and the communism was going on in Chile. So my father said, we're leaving, because it's going to get really rough. So decided to take us all to Europe, and we went to Europe, and then we stayed there for a while. Then by the time we came back, all those things happened in Chile, and then he had to leave the country, and it got really rough,
I remember one story you told me about when you used to get bread. You'd have to go on the line.
Oh, it was really difficult. I mean, by the time we had to get up at around 2:30, 3 in the morning, and go down to the line to get to the bakery to get a piece of bread. Okay, this is during the hard communism, and there were soldiers with rifles all around it. So if you came in and kind of snuck in the line, they will beat you with their weapons. There were little kids. There were little kids trying to get a piece of bread.
And you used to get you and a couple of your brothers to get more, because you guys had a huge family. Yeah. You had to get more than once.
And they were like, no, you can only get one. So we had to separate each other, far away from each other, so they wouldn't see us. That we were all together to get that loaf. Look, it's 8 of us. It's like, at the time I think it was 7 of us, or 6 of us. At the time, and then later Sylvia was born. I think Claudia was already there, and so we used to go and get the bread to feed the whole family. So it was difficult to get out. And sometimes you get in, sometimes you don't. Sometimes they shut it down and you have to leave. You didn't make it.
And then you told me sometimes there was a time when you were just eating potatoes, and that I remember.
It was we didn't have no food whatsoever. They closed the bakery, they closed everything, and there was no food. So the only way, my father got in touch with somebody way out, and they said, look, we need some kind of food, and they're like, the only thing we can supply right now is we can get some kind of potatoes to the city. So they brought like 2 sacks of potatoes, and we were eating potatoes for months. Like the sacks were pretty big.
Yeah.
So we were eating potatoes. We were eating potatoes and salt.
And you cook them up different ways, right? That's guys. I remember eating potatoes, and you'd be like, different ways of cooking them.
Oh yeah, definitely. I learned how to cook them in every single way there is. Between bake them, fry them. Every way you could. Whatever we had at the time to do it.
Yeah.
You made the best out of that situation with the potatoes.
Oh yeah, we made the best out of it, and then we had to snuck into this monastery. The monasteries, and you could get some milk and some cheese and things like that. A little bit
of donations for the people, right?
Yeah, but it was really hard to get them because they wouldn't let you get there. So at the time it was very difficult. It was very difficult.
Sounds crazy. Anything you want to ask him?
Yeah.
No. Yeah,
and so after that, when he took us out, we kind of I was like, wow, this place, Europe was incredible. We had a taste of a different thing.
I remember where in Europe you were?
Yeah, I was. We went to so many countries. But the places I really remember and I enjoyed the most was France, Italy, definitely Italy. We had the food. There was food. There was everything there. You know what I mean? Yeah. You come from a situation where everything was taken away, and all of a sudden everything was there. So France was incredible. It was really friendly, and the girls were friendly. When you know, when you were young kids, they were like, you know, they were like very outgoing. You know, you're a young kid, they'll come and kiss you. You know, they'll come and tell you, hey, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, whoa. You know? And in Spain, the same thing. Spain was, you know, a lot of fun. But he took us everywhere. You know, he made us walk. He made us walk every single day and to go to every single museum. He says, look, this is the best education you guys are going to get. I know you guys have been having a hard time in educating yourselves, but this is it. You know, you're going to learn about history and who's this person and who is, Michelangelo, who's, you know, Pizarro, he just mentioned every single person.
A lot of history lessons.
A lot of history lessons by walking and going into these museums and going to these castles and going to these places. So, you know, I appreciate that, and I take my hat to my father that he worked really hard to try to give us an education no matter what. And so then we went back to Chile after we were in Europe for so long, having a great time. Then we had to go back, you know, and then when he went back, the whole thing went down. We were there. We were in Chile. I remember we were in Chile. We just got him back. We were there about maybe a couple months. And my mother always she had an intuition about things. You know, she would tell you what's going on with somebody before it happened, almost. You know, and you know, people believed her, some people didn't. You know, but my father was like, no, your mother has something. You know, like, you know, something going on here. So she had a dream that Allende was going to be killed. You know, this is 1973, I believe.
And who was Allende?
He was the communist president of Chile at the time. And she had this dream. She told us all. She goes, look, somebody's got to tell him something. They're going to try to kill him. My father was like, how are we going to tell him anything? You know, he's like, he's behind guns and everything else. I remember you could see him and Castro together in TV having these wild parties. You know.
Yeah, Fidel Castro, right?
Yeah, Fidel Castro. And him having these huge parties. So how are you gonna get a hold of him? My father was like, let me find out. If I can tell him something, you know, figure out something. But they were not able to tell him. You know, they told him something, they say, but you know, they're like, okay, yeah, everybody's trying to kill him, you know. And but they killed him. That's when they went in there. They had the clue. Apparently, it wasn't Pinochet. It was the general before him, you know, who did it. But Pinochet is the one that took over, you know, afterwards. But I remember so vivid. We were in the line to get bread, and then all of a sudden the people are screaming and yelling, you know, people going crazy. They killed him, you know, we're free. They're like driving down and going like this crazy stuff. And I was a little kid, so I'm like, wow, you know, I'm like, all of a sudden everybody took off from the thing. They went crazy on the bakery, you know, the police left, and they went in the bakery and they took everything. People went for everything they had in there. No control. You know, it's one of those crazy things. And then we took off, went home. But so then the country was free from that. But then what happened is the new government came in and started to go after people. So they got rid of a lot of people. A lot of people fled the country, and they killed a lot of people too. There was things they said that they happened. Whatever they had to do, I think it happened for a reason. But you know, it was really hard on a lot of people. There's a lot of young people who were for the, you know, what is called Patria y Libertad. Like one of my cousins was in it, and he used to come home beat up and bleeding to death, you know, because he was into that. You know, he was trying to get. There were young kids from school that they would have these things, you know, where they will fight for the freedom of the country. But it was pretty intense.
So did you stay there, or when did you guys kind of get out?
No, my father then decided they opened up. When Pinochet took over, they opened up a thing where they were giving pretty much military people or Navy people or Air Force people the chance to go. And then only a few of the public had a chance to take tests and to find out if they can be approved to become either a diplomat or a person in government. Mm. Because now, remember, the military took over. So it's not like my father was growing up. This is one thing that I remember very clearly. Before the communists won, my father was he was a party promoter. Like he would go out and get crowds and crowds of people and talk in front of crowds of people, like, you know, thousands of people.
Wow.
So he was a really good speaker. So he was able to move thousands of people, and said, okay, we're going to have a promotion here. And we will all go there. He will take us all. He will take the whole family. And then there were thousands and thousands of people. You could not see the end of it. They will come to the things. And it was a rally for the party, for the right party. He was always a Republican, and there was the democracy, and then there was the communists. And what happens is they both lost. The Republican won, but the democracy said, you know what, we're going to lose, so we're going to give you the votes. So they ended up giving the votes to the Communist Party, and they won. So that's when the whole thing started to go down.
Yeah.
And that's when we left the country. And then when we came back, when the whole thing happened, when they killed him, then my father applied for this and went to take this test with the government, and he became he was really smart, because he taught at a Catholic university, and he taught history and law, because he was a lawyer. So he took the test, and he was out of 2,000 people, he became in the top 5.
Wow.
So they gave him a position. He says, where would you like to go? We have a choice to go to Europe, or to go to the U.S., or to go here. We would like to go to the U.S. because if you can fix the situation there with us. Because at that point, in the U.S., they wanted to have relationships, and the U.S. decided not to, because they backed up the first general, but then the general that took over, Pinochet, was like, no, thank you so much for helping us, but we don't want nothing to do with you. We want our own thing. We want to be free. Chile wants to be free, and the people want to be free. We don't want to be part of the U.S. or be forced by you guys. So they decided to send them to the U.S. He took the U.S. position, and that's how we came here.
Tell me a story about you growing up in Chile. A lot of fights happen, and defend yourself, and fight for your family too. Defend your sisters, your brothers.
So in that area, when we came back from Europe, things were still tough. So you learn how to fight. In the area we lived in, which is called Providencia, it was there were different neighborhoods. As you go down the road, you can go all the way down to DC, all the way down to Santiago. All the way to downtown Santiago, which is a rough area, and they had different packets of neighborhoods, and some of them were really rough neighborhoods. You got to know where you were, and so you would go down with your friends, and there was a plaza that you go there, and if you go there at the wrong time during the day, you have to fight, because you have to defend yourself. They'll come after you. It was things that used to happen. It was crazy. It was really like out of control. Sometimes they had kids that live. You felt like they lived on the trees, so they lived, out in the open. You didn't know exactly where they came from, but they were part of a group, and you had to fight them. And you were kids, you didn't know what was happening. So and I got used to it fighting, So I was pretty good at fighting. So I got used to fighting. So if they would come, I would just, attack. And they knew. So the guys who hung out with me, they were pretty good fighters too. So you have to fight. You have to fight for it. And if you were alone, they will beat you up really hard. They would just hold on to it, and then people would just come in, boom, boom. You come home, purple. It was just really crazy growing up like that, And even though I fought until the end. Like even when I left, I had to fight, and no matter what. And one of the things that I learned how to, because I was going to a French school, which is a Catholic French school, La Salle. But then from there, I was changed to another school, because there was a professor there who hated me. That one of the teachers didn't like me at all because of my last name. He thought I was related to the Martinez's, that they did something to his family or to his grandparents. So he thought, oh, I'm going to pay for it, and he looked at it that way.
He had something out for you.
Yeah, he had something out. He didn't want to pass me. He didn't want to, and he would make an example. They were allowed to hit you back in those schools.
Yeah.
They're allowed to hit you or hurt you. So it was, you had to defend yourself. And I kicked him one time. I kicked him really hard. And he dropped me. He picked me up. He picked me up by my sideburns, right here, by the hair, and lift you up in there like this. He would just, didn't care. And I just went boom, and I hit him in the balls, and he dropped me. And then after that, he wanted to get me, So he tried to ruin me, He tried to take me. He wrote the worst report about me, But I did some bad things to him too. Okay, there was called a little tiny thing you used to use, like the pins. Back then you used to have a pin to put the paper together. You didn't have the clips. You had a real pin.
Yeah, I understand.
So I would bend these pins a certain way. It was like a little L like this, and then up like this. And I used to let him sit. And I would bend him a certain way and put him on his seat. To get him, and it was really intense because I knew he was saying. I would just come in, and I was just like looking at him. He would look at me like. And then I'll be looking at him, and then he will sit down and go like, So at the end, he would have to be looking out for things. I got him so many times, he was not even funny,
And you had like your own little battle going on in school, your own little war you were trying to survive.
It was tough, but I was one of those kids that I learned quickly, because I grew up, but like I said, I grew up. I was, I don't know what it was, but he put me out there, so it was really intense growing up. And there was another thing that they had this plant called peorilla. This plant is like it's like a hard brown bean. You open it up, and it's the worst. It smells like shit. Literally.
Yeah.
So you would set those up. When they explode, it's like peorilla. It smells like somebody took a shit. Like they have to leave the class. Nobody can stay in the class.
Yeah.
So I would bring those up, and then do those to him as well. Now remember, he hated me so much, and I hated him. I didn't want to go to school. I hated it so much going in, so I would like sometimes stay away and run away from it, but they will get you, they'll force you to do it. So then that's how I learned how to, because I used to go out on the streets a lot, that's how I learned how to fight a lot. And then that's when we used to go and fight these kids, and it was rough fighting there because one time, one of the times I remember, it happened until the last night that I left there, there was never peace there. It was just one fight after the other one. One time they beat up my little brother, and I went crazy. They beat up my little brother, and I was like, who did this to you? So I went over there, man, and I went over there like really mad. And my little brother said, you go home right now. Tell me who it is. So he showed me who they were, So I went over there, and I beat them, I beat these kids up, really bad. There was like 5 of them, I didn't stop, So then I went back, and my father said, okay, he told my 2 older brothers, he says, you guys are going to have to go back and help him out because I know these are rough kids, so find out exactly who they are and this and that. Well, it didn't work out. One time I'm walking through a thing and they got me. The older brother, they went and got me, and they got me, and they were holding on to me, they were holding on to me. I'm kicking, I'm trying to fight, but they were holding on to me. They beat me up pretty bad. I remember I came home purple, it was like in bad shape. And so I said, I gotta get this guy somehow, revenge. I was like, this is it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go fight for my life,
And your family too.
Yeah. So I went, and the night before, and I said, I'm not leaving. I'm not going to, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to the U.S. if I don't beat this guy up, So I said, I found him, and I got in the biggest fight with him, and I beat him. And there was a police officer, and he said, stay back, let them fight.
Wow.
And he let us fight to the death there now,
It's literally the Godfather of the movie.
Yeah,
this is some movie
fight
shit.
To death, and we fell into this ditch.
Yes,
and we were in the ditch, and we were, man, I was like, boom, and I felt so good after that, I felt so good after I beat him so hard, and the guy let me go back home, and I will never forget that, because I was like, your adrenaline is like, you're like, oh my God, like.
You survived, yeah.
I survived, and I beat them. I felt like it was finally my revenge. So it felt really good I remember going off on that plane, and just saying, thank God, looking down. I said, I'm gone. This is it. I'm finally out of here. But it didn't start there, because when I got here, it got even rougher. It got really tough. Junior high here was tough. Junior high here was really rough,
Yeah. So what happened? So then you leave Chile.
Yeah.
And then now you're in the U.S.
I'm in the U.S.
What's this part like?
Okay, so we get to the U.S. and we were in D.C. We were in Washington D.C. And my father at the time, they're looking for home. We're looking for the place. So they would go out on the weekends and look for a place. He's already started his job, so we're living at a hotel, and the government of course is paying for all that, Chile, and so we're living there, and they're looking for places. And then I started to go out in DC, to get to know people. So you're walking around and get places. So I met a lot of people in different places. Like this is downtown. At the time, the U.S. was really crazy. Like I remember there was like you could see prostitutes at night everywhere. You know, it was a normal thing. You know, like girls were like wearing high heels, not wearing nothing, like a bikini almost. You know, and just walking around. You know, like no big deal. The police let them. Everybody. It was a normal thing. It was. I thought, oh my god, this country is crazy.
It was a huge business back then. A lot of money involved in gangs and stuff like that.
It was wide open. It was like normal. You see, if you go back and see, there's a movie that you can actually see how it really was. And the thing you can see, you can find it probably. I think it's called Taxi, and it's filmed in DC.
Yeah.
It's filmed in DC. Okay, but anyways, yeah, I think it's called Taxi, and it's filmed in DC. The first time I saw that, it was that real.
With Robert De Niro, right?
No, that's a different one.
Oh, okay.
This one is almost like it's kind of a rough one. The guy comes back from the war. Like this is after Vietnam.
Yeah, Vietnam.
People come, they come after Vietnam, and then all of a sudden, all this stuff happens, and it's on and off, on and off going on. But you can see more of the reality of DC. So I get to know DC a little while. We were there for like maybe 6 months to 8 months or something.
How old are you at this time period? Like what's
okay. So at this time, let me see. I'm 7th grade.
7th grade.
7th grade.
So like 12, 13.
Yeah.
Damn. So you were fighting really young in Chile. I thought you were like more of a teenager.
No, not at all. No, I was a kid. Look, when we had guns, my dad put us with guns on the windows. We were way younger, So you have to realize we were like ready. No, I was a tough kid at that time, and it was difficult. So when I got here, I was like, wow, and I was really outgoing, so I didn't have any problems. So I was talking to, I was the only one that didn't really learn English. That's one thing I forgot to tell you, that my English was not, it was really difficult,
Yeah.
But my other brothers, they went to an English school, so they understood, but I didn't. I went to a French school. I parle français a little bit, so I speak more French at the time. And they teach you French, but not English. And then that teacher, I didn't finish telling you, that teacher actually took me, I wasn't allowed to go back to the public school after I did all those things to him. He wrote the worst report on me. So I had to go to a public school in Chile, which was one of the best, but it was rough. That's one of the things that I learned how to fight really hard, because there were kids there that went to call the house of the kids, like the kids' home. They had no parents.
Oh, yeah.
It's a boarding school type of thing.
I know what you're saying, yeah.
And these are really rough kids. These are poor kids, rough kids, and they had to go to the public school as well. And that I learned how to fight there really good, because those guys were rough. They would wait for you, and they will trip you, and then boom, hit you right before school or right after school. It was a really difficult situation. Jeez. So you had to fight. So they didn't know who I was. They didn't know that I was already kind of ready for that. So I went in there. One time they got me down. Well, the next day I come up, and I got this piece of wood with me, and I beat them with a piece of wood. I beat them hard, and after that they respected me, and then they were like, hey, they became my friends, so to speak. But they were rough kids.
Some crazy way to survive. You got to build that fight respect. You got to
build it out, respect, and you believe me, black eye was nothing. Like those kind of things was normal when you're at that age. My father would say, "What did you get into right now? What's going on with you?" Like, because I would always come back home, purple, beat up, or something happened. Because it was just rough. I had cuts everywhere. I had scars everywhere, my legs.
Don't you have like one? So there was one story where you had something go through your knee, and you had to go to the doctor.
Oh no, that was difficult. The doctors were on strike, and it was really, really hard. And I remember. Okay, this is going way back. This is when I was a little kid, and my grandmother, they were really rough, like they were tough with you, We lived in this huge place, and in the old days, those old houses were really well built, but they had a place called it's basically the houses were heated with cold, and you had what is called it's a place. What do you call this place? You fill them up with cold to heat up the house.
I know what you're saying.
The furnace room.
Yeah,
the furnace room. Yeah. But the cold. Okay? And the way they used to scare you, remember, so if you don't tell me who did this, because somebody broke the window, somebody did something in the house, it was running around. And, they were like, Ricardo did it. Ricardo did it, No, it's like, he did it. So I was like, okay, punish it. We'll call Luis, come and take him down to the caldera. That's what it was called.
Caldera?
The caldera.
Sounds crazy.
Yeah, well, the caldera was like the caldera of the devil. you know. So scary place for you. You're like, man, I'm gonna die. You know, I'm gonna die down there.
It's like a dark room.
It was black. Remember, it's a coil room. They burn charcoal.
Yeah.
To heat up the whole place.
Yeah.
It's a black room and it's a huge thing in there. Dark. You're gonna die down there. It's like the fuera de candela del diablo. So it'd be like my grandma was nuts.
It's like hell.
Yeah. It was like you're gonna die down there.
Purgatory.
So
Yeah,
so what happened is, and I found a way out. It was so neat. I was so scared in there, and I'm praying to my father, you know, because my father wasn't, you know, my father, you know, I would pray to him, and I didn't know where he was. That was my father that died, you know. So I would pray to him, and I'm a little kid. I'm like, I'm really young, and I'm going, God, please get me out of here, get me out of here. And then all of a sudden, something tells me to go in it, you know,
In the coal fire.
in the cool thing, and I'm going, oh my God, you know. I said, so I just walked in there. I'm a little kid. I walked in there, and there was these bars at the end of it. At the end, there was these bars, like a stair, metal stairs, like really hard metal, you know. And everything is black. I mean, my hands were black. Everything is like black, you know, like charcoal. So you go in there, and I started going up, and there was a metal thing you can push out and come out into the garage and get away from it. And I was like, oh, thank God, because they're gonna leave me there, you know.
Yeah.
So I find a way out, so I get it out.
For days.
I hide it. Oh yeah, she would keep you there all night long to teach you a lesson. Grandma was a tough lady. So I was like, okay. So I found a way out, and I was like, thank you, God. You know, like I found a way out. You know, there's a way out. It's incredible. So I got out of there, but it was packed with things, and that's what happened to me. One of those times that they sent me to the thing, I got out and I started to play in the garage for myself. You know, jumping around, you know, things. And I jump in on this thing, and there's a champagne bottle sticking out like this, and landed on my leg. 100%. So cut me wide open, cut my veins.
Ooh.
So I was bleeding like, man, it was blood all
You're
over
still
the place.
scarred, right? Because I remember you showing me that scar when I was a kid.
Yeah,
You could have died easily.
I could have died. I could have bled out, you know. So I was
Easily.
screaming and yelling, and they couldn't get in the garage. The garage was locked, and they couldn't get in. They figured out, but they finally got in it. They finally got in the place, and they find what's happened. So they tried to take me somewhere, but all the hospitals are shut down.
On strike.
On strike. Doctors, no doctors. So then they finally got one of the doctors that they knew somewhere, one of the guys, and said, look, the only thing you can do, give me some rubber. So they put a rubber piece on one side and a rubber piece on the other side, so I wouldn't lose too much blood. So they started stopping, and then they grabbed salt and poured salt on my leg,
On the wound,
and they put it and poured it up, and it was just blood salt. You know, you could see it. Said, I'm sitting there looking, I'm freaking out. You know,
Did they give you some whiskey or something, some alcohol?
they gave me some wine.
Drink on.
They said, drink this,
Numb
drink
the
this.
pain.
They gave me some wine. I remember that one. I was like, drink this.
Any like morphine or like no, probably not.
They couldn't get anything. They couldn't get anything. The doctor just said, look, we're going to try to save this.
And you're a young
see
little
what
kid
happens.
too.
That's why my legs look like it's this big. The thing is this big open. It looks like like glass skin, you know.
Oh.
It never healed. They were never able to put things and close it off. They didn't sew it. So the thing opened up that big because it's pretty big. It went right in, and it split my skin open in the leg that it did.
That was a crazy story.
Yeah, it was intense. I remember that it was really intense. I had another story like that when we used to go fight. So I'm getting away from this crew. And they're building a swimming pool type of thing, water fountain type of thing, and they had the rebars sticking out like this. And that rebar, I'm running away from this place at the time. I beat up these kids, and I'm running all the way back with like two other kids, and all of a sudden, I jump, thinking I can jump and then jump out, but there's a rebar there. I got stuck on the rebar on this leg.
Oh, yep, this is the one you showed me. This is the one you showed me.
I was like, oh my God. I was stuck on the leg, and I was like, oh my God. I had to pull me out. It was so difficult, you know, the thing in there. I was like, that was a tough situation.
You survived.
But, you know, I survived it. You know, things happen.
Yeah,
man. Like that. They used to make you eat this thing. It's called cochayuyo. This thing was made out of it's a seaweed that in the ocean. It's like really hard. They beat it up, and they cook it to make it soft to be able to eat it. It was horrible. But it had a lot of iodine and things that are really good for your body. And you can heal quickly, you know? So my father used to make you eat that stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I wanted to give it to the dog, you know? But you had to eat it. But I remember that it was so well. It was one of those things that you never forget. But, you know, it was one of those things. Like, I can tell you guys a story on and on and off of that era before we even got here, because I can write a book on this. But one time we had my father, when he was running when we used to do the meetings for the government try to win the right or the left, you know, when they win the political part of it. He had one of his guys they're always armed down there. You have to be armed, So your chauffeur will be armed, Everybody wear guns. And one time I went in there and I saw the gun and I'm like, oh man, I gotta get that. So I went in there and I got the gun, and it was like you could pull the trigger out of it, okay, and then it starts triggering. There's like a little thing around it. You pulled it out and boom, and you start shooting. You had like so many shots in there. But I happened to go in between. There was a door swing between the living room, the dining room and the kitchen. And I came, and he lived right off of the kitchen. There was a couple. You go outside the kitchen, and there's a couple of rooms for the help. And these houses were built that way. They always had like 2 or 3 people in there. So I come back in. I got the gun from his dresser, and I come back in, and the gun went off. And I remember it went. The bullet went right through. It made me bleed right here. It went. It went ricochet in the wall because it was like a little partition. One gun here, and one door here, and one door on the other side. So you come through this door and get that door. So the smell of the kitchen won't go to the dining room when you're cooking. When there were serving people, and the bullet went off right there, and I could have died that day. And that was my first time I shot a gun. Before I had another experience later. After we went to Europe, after I came back, it was a big 32. My father before he died, he collected guns. He was a hunter. So my stepfather ended up getting all these guns. And that's where he put all these guns. The machine guns, all those things were part of it when we were defending ourselves against, the people coming in against the houses. Because once they won, they were taking over everything. They would take over your house, So he was like, nobody's taking over our house, So
yeah,
that's when he put the guns in there. But I grabbed this gun the first time before he set us up to do all that. I grabbed this gun and I shot the thing. And I remember it went through the desk. It was like a table like this, It went through and it got stuck in one of the legs down here. You could see the bullet. It was so big. But I remember went, shoot the gun out. I was like, wow.
How old were you shooting guns?
I was a kid. This is how you see those shows here where you see the guns laying around and the kid can kill himself. That's exactly what happened.
Madness.
Yeah, it was a tough time. But there's so many stories. I can remember things, crazy things like that. There were more stories.
We're definitely going to come back and do more on this stuff later.
But no, because you're going back and forth about it. As a growing up in there, it really was a rough time to grow up, in that area at the time because of all the things that were going on and the place we were at, because you had the high rises and then you had all the spots down there, and then you had where we grew up in that area. It was pretty nice. My father got a beautiful house in a nice area, and there was the embassy was it was the Peruvian embassy. The Peruvian embassy was right next to us, so people literally would come and sneak into our house and be knocking on the door. Please open up! Please open up! They were going to kill them. So the only way to get out, they had to come into an embassy, and then they were be protected by the embassy.
Yeah.
But if you're not in the embassy, they'll get you.
Yeah.
My father was, don't open any doors. Let them jump into the embassy. The embassy is like 30 feet down, So you have to survive if you get down there.
30 feet?
But you let them in the house, they can kill you.
Yeah, you have to be taking.
These are rough people.
It's crazy times.
So they wouldn't let us in. It was tough. And I was the kind of kid that would sneak out at night during the curfew. And that's when the kids were out. They were going in jeeps and guns. After, so I would go from tree to tree. I remember walking all the way down and trying to get to my friend's house. And there's some other stories in there, but we don't want to get into that.
Yeah.
It's like like his sister, being older and trying to, do things to you and stuff like that. But it was some crazy experiences like that. That as a kid you were like, wow, you were just blown away by it.
So then you came here, and you're going to school in America.
Yeah. Then we get to the U.S. and my father was at the embassy, and he ended up buying a beautiful house in Bethesda, and we ended
right here where we are now.
Yeah.
right here where we are down the street, right off of.
You showed me. Yeah.
And I got to know the whole neighborhood. Like I had friends that lived right here. A lot of my friends that end up going. They used to go to what's it called, Western. Or the other one over there by the junior high.
It was next to Pyle, but
yeah, well, Pyle was one. I went to Pyle. I went to Pyle and Walt Whitman.
What?
But before that, there were what's the one around here? The junior high here. I think it was.
We don't have the same ones now, but it's like Tilden, North Bethesda.
Tilden was one. I remember that.
And there was the
North Bethesda. North Bethesda was the one.
Oh, they still had that down.
Yeah, North Bethesda was there for sure, because the kids from there came there, and there were some big fighters there too. There were some guys that could fight in North Bethesda.
Well, that's where my dad went to middle school, and then he went to Walter Johnson.
Oh, really?
My mom too. Yeah.
So he probably knows some of the guys that went because the guys, because there was a fine line. Some went to Walter Johnson, some went to Walt Whitman.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So he went to Walter Johnson.
Yeah, and then he
probably knows some of my friends.
He lived down there, near like right by North Bethesda.
Yeah. So some of my friends lived really close to here. You know, like sort of in between. You know, kind of like very narrow. Some of my friends lived right off of Burdett Road, all of Burdett. You know.
Yeah.
In that area, I lived on the other side of Burdett, right off of River Road. You know, that's where we grew up, and it was tough coming here because I mean it was difficult for me to learn at the beginning. And I had to fight too. It was really tough. It was a tough time, because I remember there was a kid, Jose Porro, was a really nice kid. He took me. He said, "Hey, I'm going to show you the classes. I'm going to show you where stuff is." And one of the other kids was Gus Petrie. It's funny, but I became really good friends with their family. Really, 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 with his older brothers more than him. And he was my age, but I was more friendly with his older brothers because I was more grown up than my age.
Yeah, you're more mature.
More mature about it, but there was the time Jose Porro was he was from Cuba, I believe, and he was the nicest guy, really straight guy, really. And he taught me so many things. So he helped me to go from class to class and explain to me how everything worked.
In middle school, right?
Middle school, Pyle Junior High, and I remembered I came. My English was really bad, and I came to school that day. It was a Monday morning. I'm like, I looked at him and he looked beat up. They beat him up. 3 guys beat him up. Terry Ryans and a couple of the other guys, but they were like the bigger guys, the biggest sports guys, and they beat him up. Actually, he grew up right down here. Terrence Ryan was right up here. His house was right off of the road. I remember. Yeah, and they beat him up so bad. So I said, "Who did this to you, man?" No, don't worry about it. No. I said, "Who did this to you?" So I said, "Okay." I went. He went to show me who it was, and who it was. He showed me that. I said, "Okay, don't worry about it." So I went after them, and I beat them. I beat each one of them out, but I got in a lot of trouble. Because
it's probably more strict here.
Oh, it was way more strict. So I beat them so hard.
More punishments, right?
I beat them so hard that they were like, "Who is this kid? How do you do this?" So then they went looking for me. I beat them up really hard, and I went back to class. And I sat in the class. I said, I was in the bathroom, so I sat in the class. And I'm sitting in the class, I'm bleeding in my hands. I'm like, I'm sitting there, I'm covering my hands, and they come in the class. They come looking for me. It's that kid from that foreign kid, and it was a rough time. But after that, they respected. They never even said anything to me.
Yeah.
So
that unspoken respect was earned.
Oh, it was like they will get away from me, like something is wrong with that kid. Something is wrong. But I didn't do it. And that kid, they never touched him again.
It's good though.
So he was a good kid. He didn't deserve that.
Yeah.
But because I was brought up the way I was brought up in Chile, it was for me, it was easy to do it. I didn't feel anything. No big deal. But so that's what happened. So then we started here. This is then I went to school there, and it was a different world. And I learned how to communicate mostly by dating girls. That was the easiest way for me to learn English, faster than in the class.
You got interest in it. You got something to gain.
I think that was it. Because by the time I was at Walt Whitman, it was it was really simple.
That's cool.
But of course, we were going through a lot of times. There was a lot of rough things that happened at that time. Remember, this is 1977, 1976. No, 1974. 73, so at the end of 73 when we came, whenever 73, 74, 75, it was a rough time.
Because you used to start high school earlier back then too, 8th grade, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was 8th grade, you're right. Oh, I had some crazy stories about that, but I don't know if we can get into that.
Okay, well, one thing I do want to go into is, so after high school, you went to California, right?
Yes.
That's a long story right there.
Oh, that's a huge one. That took, that's a couple of years of me getting away from here. And doing that really took me away to a different world. And my friend says, "Look, you only have once in a lifetime that you can do this. Once in a lifetime you can actually do this. I said, "Maybe we can go." So I'm sitting on River Road at a place. It was a bowling place we used to go to, right off of River Road. It's a big bowling place. I don't know if it's still there or not.
Bowmore?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I used to live there when I was a kid. Me and my dad, apartment building next door. So
Yeah.
we lived
Right there, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I used to go there all the time.
My dad used to go there.
I got some stories about that because I used to
got
go
a lot
there.
of chicks down there too.
Oh my God, it was wild. Because we used to be able to go on River Road. Okay, we used to go. There's a place called Talbert's. Okay, and we were like totally underage. I mean, we were like, I was 14. You know,
I didn't give a fuck back then.
No. I had my friend, crazy friend Kevin. He used to make these IDs on our printing class. You know, he said, "Man, I got him done. I got him figured out." So he would put them against these yellow doors, you know, and he says, "Okay, we got it all figured out, man. I'm gonna do this and this and that." He was a planner.
The OG fake ID.
He was a planner. He would do these things. So he would make this Ohio ID. It was incredible, this ID. So the older guy was like, "Ohio ID, huh? Are you a bullfighter?" He used to call me the bullfighter.
Yeah.
You know, because I was a tough kid, you know.
Yeah.
So he was like, "Are you a bullfighter?" And I said, "You can call me bullfighter. I'm cool. You know, with the bullfighter." He goes, "Okay, there's the bullfighter again." So you would go in there with those IDs and be able to get beer for everybody.
Yeah.
And this is like way before you could go
using a fake ID.
Listen, we could go down to DC and get in a nightclub, and that was like, wow.
Probably super powerful.
That was so amazing, you know, that we could do that. You know, that's when it was. Oh, I had stories to tell you about that because my friend, one of my friends, they used to own like some of the clubs down there. His father, you know. But I'm sorry. I mean, you know, one of them passed away, and I'm saying, you know, God bless his soul. But they were great. They were great family. And what made me decide to say, okay, I'll go. You know, what made me decide to make that decision was that I'm looking at these poor people in a wheelchair and stuff, and I'm going, these older people, you know. And I said, I'm never going to be as young again. I'm not going to be able to do this, you know. My friend says, look, man, we'll just take off now, you know. Let's just go now. And I'm going, I don't know if I want to do that. You know, my whole family's going to miss me. It's going to be crazy stuff. But I said, you know what? Let's do it. At the end of it, when I start thinking about the old people sitting in the wheelchair and not be able to do anything, I'm going, you know what? If I don't do it now, I'll never do it. So let's do it. So we got ready. I said, look, you're going to come and pick me up on Wednesday. I'm going to be ready. Just come up and boom. And we had a wagon. We had a LTD Ford.
I don't know what that is.
It's a wagon. It's like a station wagon. In the old days, you used to have station wagons. You know, that you can put. They have automatic windows, and you know, he had an old green station wagon, and he's like, "Man, let's go. We got the car. We got everything. You know." And I said, "Okay." So we got enough money to get us through, and I got all sorts of alcohol and stuff that I got, you know, from my dad's bar. You know, boxes of stuff, and we took them all, and clothes and whatever, cameras and whatever I had in there. I took everything, all my clothes, my camera. Back then, you know, there was no phones, you know, public phones was what's out, you know. So yeah, the camera was a huge thing to have. If you have a nice camera, and I had like a nice camera with a lens and all that.
That's
like,
awesome.
Man, I'm gonna go there and take pictures and everything. It's gonna be a great trip. You know, we'll go across the United States.
Yeah,
and we did. We went from, you know, here to, let's say, West Virginia, then to Louisiana. We went to a couple places before that, but Louisiana, we ended up staying there. One other guy came in with us, and he says, look, we'll go to all these places, but then we'll stop in Louisiana. I got some buddies over there at Louisiana State University. My buddies are going, they're sophomores there or something. I said, oh, okay, let's go. So we were kids, you know, we were like just coming out of high school. We're like, okay, great, you know. So we had the best time, you know, because girls party we went to San State University, and then from there we go up. I knew this one girl. She was up in New Mexico, and that was an amazing time over there because I knew this one girl was there, and then she had this friend, and the friend was like, man, we hit it off right away. You know, she was like beautiful redhead, beautiful girl, you know, and she was like, anyway, so we stayed there for a while. Then we stayed with them for quite a while, and then my friend was like, no, we gotta go. We can't be here. We gotta go see the country. So then we kind of got set up there, and then we ended up moving from one place, from Louisiana. We stayed for a while. Then we went to another place. We stayed there. Then we went to California finally. But we stopped in New Mexico for quite a while. But I got into some trouble there. I can't know if I can talk about that.
Yeah, that's fine.
You know, that can be dangerous because at the time I was going under, you know, sort of a situation there, and luckily, the girl that worked for the person there, anyways, got to like me, you know, and she was like, if you know, I'll give you all your stuff, you know. Like, she was old. She was like,
hey, you do what you gotta do. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my God, you know, when I do this, I'm like, okay, you know what? Forget it, man. I'll get all my stuff back. And you know, like, and because they let me, the guy who owns the town there, you know, really nice guy, Mr. Cabeza de Vaca, Mr. C de Vaca, I used to call him, but I knew his real name was Cabeza de Vaca, which he was like the grandson of the real chief of Cabeza de Vaca that used to own all of New Mexico. Wow. You know, Indian man, and the government decided to give the land back to them. And I worked on those lands. You know, I worked where they tested the atomic bomb, because he used to say heavy radiation, atomic radiation.
Oh yeah.
You know, and they used to. I got a job. Look, listen to this. When I got to New Mexico, that's a whole other story. Okay? Every state is going to be a different story. But we got to New Mexico, and New Mexico is like, where are we? You know, like where? And this girl was living in Los Alamos, New Mexico, where they make the atomic bomb.
Yeah, Los Alamos.
So yeah, Los Alamos. So they had all the scientists from all over the world live there. So they had the biggest police station because they do security. You know what I mean? But and I'm not going to people say, hey, you have a job? You know, like, they tell me we have money. We're like, okay, we need to get some money. I can tell you stories how we got there. It's incredible. I said, okay, we got to get a job. You know, so we got to get a job. And I'm like, okay. So I started looking everywhere. I'm like knocking on people's door. Hey, you have a job? You know, I'll do this. I'll do that. You know, and I said, what do you know how to do it? And so at the end, it's really funny because I ended up getting the job through there was a Los Alamos Inn. There was only a little hotel there, and his best friend, one of the best friends of those guys, was Mr. Sirivaca, who owned the most of the town. Like he owned the buildings there, and he had mainly business construction, basically. You know, I had to do things in there to dig down holes to open up the sewer and stuff. It was really intense stuff for like $3 an hour. I'm like 17 years old.
What the? That's insane.
I'm like, you know, I'm a young kid.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know, but you know how I got the job? Because we knew how to play soccer.
Oh.
Oh, you played soccer?
Yeah. So we told him I told the guy as my friend, you know, his nickname was Nacho, Juan Ignacio, and he told him, hey, you know, if you know how to play soccer, you got a job. You know, he's like, oh, I can play soccer. You know, I'm a good soccer player, and I was really good too, because I played. You know, I played in Chile. That's one thing I didn't talk about. I played since I was a kid. I even played for like the junior league, the Chilean junior league. You know, like I was a really good player, and but because of all the government problems, you know, it was very difficult to follow up. And then they would shut down everything. You couldn't go play. You know, but anyway, so we were in New Mexico, and so something happens there, and then this lady, you know, who tells me, offers me this, and then the other girl that I fell in love with was like, okay, look, if you leave, then you're gonna go and meet me. I'm going to go to California. My grandmother lives in California. And I said, oh, great. But we went there. We went to California to see a buddy. We had a friend that went to school with us. I went to school with my friend. He went to, what's it called, in Gatesburg. Pretty big high school.
Gatesburg High School? Magruder?
No, another one.
Damascus?
No. It's a really, really well-known football players over there. Right off of...
oh, you're talking about fuck.
Yeah, I used to fight those guys. Like, you know, yeah, we got in fights with those guys too. Like they were big. They were big boys. You know, they were big boys over there. What's it called? That guy. So anyways, so he went there. So we went to see him. His father was stationed in Black Beach, like really beautiful neighborhood. You know, and we ended up staying there for a little while. But we got robbed. Okay, listen to what happened. We get there. And the mother was like, okay, you guys are going to stay over there. It's like summer all the time, you know? So they had closed-in garage area, and he was like open to the house, sort of. They didn't use it as a garage. So he just slipped. They had a couple beds in there, and like, you guys can stay here. And I said, okay. She's like, I was always like really nice to people. I was like, what can I help you with, you know, whatever do, you know, because before we get a job, it's like, we're there, but we had money. We had put money together because we worked and so forth. So we get there, and I said, he goes, let's go to the supermarket and get some food, you know, like, have some food and stuff like that. So we get to the supermarket. We haven't unloaded everything yet. We unloaded some things only. And I'm the one in charge of keeping the money. And there's 14 kids coming, you know, there were black kids coming, walking towards us. One with a basketball and going like this. And they saw the car, I guess. They saw Maryland plates. And they came to the car. We're in front of the supermarket. You know, like we're maybe, you know, 20 cars away from it, you know, parked. And he's talking to me. Okay, we have to make sure you keep the money. Make sure that, you know, we only spend so much until we can start working again and doing our thing. So I said, okay, let's do that. So I got the money. But they approached the car and they're like, hey, you guys want something? You want something? You want something? They're like this. And the guy, no. And the guy grabbed his head and put a 38 on him. And he says, we don't fucking with you. Give us your money right now. You know? And something just bit me on him. I don't know what the hell it is. But anyways, so all of a sudden, they grabbed his head. I'm sitting right here next to him. And I got my camera here, you know? So I tied the camera around my arm really quick, like seconds. You just can't think too fast. You know, like they're gonna kill him.
Yeah.
They're gonna shoot him right now. So then they start jumping in the car. They start jumping in the back seat. They open my door and they pull me out. And I'm going, hey, you know, and they just pull me out, throw me out, and they bang with the gun on his head, and he's out. They knocked him out, and I'm like, hey, you know, with the camera in my hands, you know, and I'm gonna hit him with the camera, I'll do whatever. But it was so quick. It happened so fast. You didn't know what to react. You didn't have time to react. I'm just like, oh my God, they're gonna shoot him, you know. So I come around the front of the car, and then the guy gets in the car, and you know. So I jumped out to get him, and they took off with all the stuff in the car, and they took the car. And I'm like, man, thank God he's okay. I'm like, are you okay, man? Are you okay? So the guy's like, hey, what's going on? You know, one of the guys that worked at the market, you know, he's like, hey, we just got robbed, you know, like, so the police comes, and they looked at us like we were not from there. So they looked at us, where are you from, Mexico? You know, like, I was like, what?
Yeah.
You know, I was like, look, we just got robbed. They robbed that thing, you know. That. So I pulled out the driver's license, and I pulled out this, and I said, you know, they find out who we were, and they find out that we're, you know, sons of a diplomat and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So then they're like, oh, then the detectives come in, and they're like, they took us in and they took care of us. Before that, they were ready to arrest us.
But then they take you seriously when they.
Then they took us seriously. They took us seriously, and all of a sudden, they took us seriously, and then, you know, they said, oh, don't worry about it. We're gonna take care of this. We're gonna find out what happened, you know, blah, blah, blah. So we went back to our friends, and we were like, man, we don't have a car, you know. Yeah. We were in the best situation, but they didn't take the money. So at least we had some money, and we had ourselves, you know. We're alive, but it was rough.
What did you do from here?
I went to get a job. I started to work, and the funny thing is, my friend freaked out. So my friend, after that trip, when he got there, he's like, you know what? I could have lost my life there. You know, I think I'm going back. I'm gonna fly back and this and that. So he still had a girlfriend here, you know, stuff like that. So he came back. I stayed.
So you're alone?
I'm alone at that time, living with a Vietnamese family, because my friend was from Vietnam, and I didn't understand half of what they were saying, you know. And I'm sitting there with them, and I learned how to eat pho, you know. They would have, the best pho, you know. And I learned, and I would, first all I did was like, okay, I took care of things, you know, for her. I cut the grass, I did whatever I could to help him out, and she loved me because he was a lazy bum, you know. He was like a smoky. We've been hanging out all day long, not doing anything, you know. And he would not do anything, and I would like take care of the place, clean up everything. You know, I was like, okay, you need more help? It's okay, so I'll go, you know. So I stayed there for a while, and they come, and after he left, my friend left, and they found the car like a month later or something like that. They found the car, and they said, hey, we found the car. It was all beat up and gone, you know. So they ended up selling the car. I sent part of the money to him, you know, and I kept some of them, and I stayed. And I stayed for a while. Then my girl came from, my girlfriend that I had in New Mexico came because she lived there. She lived down south from there, which is called the National City, which is really literally the borderline. You could actually go to Mexico and come back. There's no problem. We used to go put gas in Mexico and come back.
Gas is cheaper?
Yeah, way cheaper. So anyways, but I met her grandmother. It was amazing. The lady was amazing. Her grandmother really liked me.
How'd you get back in contact with her, by the way? Because like no phones and stuff like that?
Oh, well, she knew what she was, you know. So okay. Phones from the house.
Okay,
phones from the house. And there were phones in the house, no cell phones. But I called her up, and, you know, she called me. She was trying. I said, look, we got robbed. All these things happened, you know. He said, well, look, I'm gonna be going to school there, you know, in California. I'm going to my grandma's, and I'm going to be going to school there. You can come and stay with me. I said, are you serious? I said, okay, sure. So she came in, and we stayed together for a while. The grandmother really liked me. We went to church together, and she said to me, I'm going to give you guys this house to stay in. So she let me stay in with her granddaughter in one of the little houses. She owned like 10 houses in the block. She owned everything.
They had money.
Yeah, they were really well. She was really, really nice. I mean, she was very spiritual. You know, I learned a lot from her. She was a really spiritual lady, and I was like, wow, your grandma is amazing. You know, she's really an amazing lady. She goes, yeah, I love her. She's like so great. And I was like, I ended up working there for a while, doing something there for a while, but I had a fallout with her. I had a fallout with my girl because I found out that when she went back, she went to visit. I was working with her cousin. I was doing something with her cousin at the time, and she goes, I have to go back to New Mexico for a little while. When she went back, she saw her old boyfriend, and I find out because stupidity thing. I found out, and it really hurt me. But I'm moving. A letter that she had fell in the dresser in the back, so I'm cleaning the place up, and I found this letter. And she was like, "It was so nice to see you. I want to get back to you. I know you're with Ricardo, but I want to get back to you." And fine. I was such an immature kid, but I was 17, and she's like 20 something, and I'm like, I was in love with this woman, But it happened. So I said, you know what? I can't deal with this. Just like broke my heart in a way. So I said, I'm going to take off. So I contacted my family and said, look, I'm coming back. So I ended up coming back. I mean, I have some great stories to tell you later about things that happened in California, but I get back to Maryland, close to 18.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting a job with PCS, really nice, beautiful lady, Joan Estrada, wonderful lady from Chevy Chase. And she was in the carpet business. And she took me on her wing, really. She taught me so many things. She used to put a list together for me to see if I could do the task, I said, Ricardo, this is what I have for you today. Can you take care of all these things? So I will finish the thing like in a couple of minutes, like right away. I was like, okay, this, and then I will do them. Be like, okay, I'm ready. He goes, what, you did all that already? It's like, yes. I could take this.
It's like you.
So I was like really cool. She took me under her wing, and she would get all these tasks for me to do. She would love it. She was amazing, But I worked with her for a while, and I learned a lot of things, I had a great deal of respect for her and her family. What a beautiful family. And as a matter of fact, I should go see her sometime,
Yeah, we should.
I haven't seen her. We should go by there and just say hello. Because she's really amazing. I hope she's doing okay. Well, I went to see her after Mikey was born. I think I saw her once. I said hello to her. And that was it. But then after Mikey was born, I haven't had a lot of things taking care of him and working and doing things.
Yeah.
It's just
You haven't had time in the last
raising you guys. It's been an amazing experience.
And
If I go back to Chile and tell you the things that I did in there, wow. Because now, see, you picking my mind and I'm remembering things. I don't know if it's healthy or not, but it's a reality. I lived through it. But I can tell you what things I did in Chile was just incredible at such a young age. I see you guys walking by, I start to remember things.
Yeah.
The fighting was one thing that he took me on by, because how you have a heart and you're a warrior. You're like, I'm not gonna deal with this. No one put up with that. But there are other experiences that were amazing experiences. Along the way too. It is a life. It's somebody's life, and it's my life. But definitely, I enjoyed it. And it made me who I am. Like there's some spiritual things. That I. Made me really respect the things that I don't know about enough. Like I used to leave my body. When I was a kid, before I went to sleep, I would feel my body leaving me. And I was able to fly, sort of, and just travel. Really, really intense things that I was scared of. I was scared to tell people about it. So as a kid, I was like, really, I kept a lot of things to myself when it came to that, because they didn't know if other people would see the same thing, And I used to leave my body all the time, way before that. See, Chile was a place, I learned some really strange things in there, but it was a very spiritual place. I don't know what happened down there, but a lot of stuff must have happened, especially in that place where I was at. My dreams, I used to have these dreams, incredible dreams, man. And I think it's my past. I think maybe I don't know. I don't know if there's another life. People lived another life or not. But I was a soldier. I was a soldier in that life, and it was blue. We used to wear blue coats, gold buttons, and tall hats. And I don't know if it was. I started looking it up later on in life. I said, where are these soldiers from? Because it was over and over and over and over. It was so intense that I would wake up sweating. Like, oh my God, like what's going on? And my whole body was like, oh my God, because it was this one dream would come over all the time. And it was, we'll probably get to that eventually.
Yeah, we can get into
it. It was
that.
like a desert. We were fighting in a desert. We were fighting on sand, and all of a sudden, a huge hole comes in, and the whole army, everybody was sucked in, like sucked in the earth, We were being sucked in the earth. It was huge. It was like another explosion, and then everybody going through it, like if a canyon hit, and then it made the hole, and you fall in it, but there was a tree holding me, and everybody else would fall down, and that tree was holding me. And this was happening over and over and over and over.
I remember you telling me this, yeah.
So intense. And I have other stories like that. So intense. I was like one that it was just like incredible, but it was so vivid, so real, and until this day, I remember so many of them. So
since you're our first guest, I think we'd ask you. There's a lot of young people who are like me and Marco's age who listen to this. Majority is our age.
Yeah.
And so if you could just one piece of advice or just something to tell people our age, anything, what would you say?
Enjoy every minute of your life. I mean, really appreciate what you've been through. Don't regret it, bad or good. Enjoy every minute of it because it makes you who you are. I think that's it. And really live it. Live your life. Don't live for the future. Live your life as it comes because life is an experience. And I think that's what people forget about. A lot of times I forget, and people are, they don't really enjoy. They criticize people or they judge people, and instead of living their life, and really becoming who they need to be, which is your life, and live it. Because that makes you who you are, being independent. You guys are awesome.
Awesome podcast.
You guys are doing this, and I want you guys do really well,
Thank you, Papi.